We've been doing movie nights for
years.
A Gen Xer and
a Gen Z. Random weird moments that the two of us have experienced, and there are a lot of those.
And he crashes them.
As you do.
It's like, I'm just sitting there and I'm like, where did this come from? Why are we singing?
I mean, you're not going to learn anything about the movies listening to us talk.
This is the Argo City Podcast. Film, conventions, and fan life with Maddie and Matthew.
Okay, so, go grab your drink while I reset the title credits. Wait. Okay, we're we're back. So, hello, people of the future. Do you have flying cars yet? Because right now, it's 2025, and I do not have flying cars unless I drive at a certain speed.
I'm sorry, we gotta do it again.
No, there are no do-overs in podcasting.
I'm sorry, I was trying to hold in my laughter, I couldn't.
So, technically, this is the first episode of the Argo City Podcast, but in reality, it's really not, because it took us a couple of episodes to figure out where to put the mic.
Doing.
Yeah, figure out what gives us the best sound. So, for the first couple of weeks, sound's going to go in and out, and then it'll stabilize. And then if something else happens, who knows? This is really for those of you in the future. Those of you who found this podcast one day and thought, oh, that's kind of cool. I want to hear about this movie. I want to hear about this thing. That's what that convention's like. That's what that... and you want to go back and figure out where things began, or what exactly are we doing here. We're probably going to release this along with a second first episode. So This is really for, those of you in the future with your non-flying cars. So get it together. So, a lot of what we're... again, we go into technical... Technically, this is a movie podcast.
Technically.
But the movies are really just an excuse.
To talk.
Yeah, an excuse for us to hang out and talk about this kind of stuff. So, my name's Matt, and I'm here with Maddie.
Hello.
We're sitting here in the library in my home.
Surrounded by tons of figurines that are all staring at us.
That, and, there's books behind them, too.
And movies.
And movies and comic books and all sorts of stuff. Maddie is a Gen Zer.
Yes, I am part of... Well, I'm kind of right in the middle of Gen Z.
It's easier to just kind of peg you right there. Actually, the middle's a good place to be. I'm a Gen Xer.
I've seen both sides of it. So.
Yeah. Well, right now, Maddie is 19, and I am not. I'm a Gen Xer, and actually, I'm right at the end of Gen X, born in 1975. So
you're on the younger end of it.
Yeah, actually, well, I'm at the very end of Gen X, and sometimes people like to make different designations. Like, I have friends who are also Gen X, but they're a couple of years older than me. And they love John Hughes movies. They love The Breakfast Club. They love St. Elmo's Fire. They love Ferris Bueller. I am at the end of it where we liked the anti-John Hughes movie, like Heathers.
Oh.
You watched that with me.
Yes, we did watch that one.
And that's a deconstruction of it. So it's, we're early adopters in technology, which is why, all of us at this age have a podcast.
Yes.
And
but I do kind of feel you there. I'm like, as we mentioned before, I'm like kind of right in the middle. Like, I was part of the generation of kids that played outside, but I was also part of the generation that grew up with technology at the same time.
You didn't play outside like we played outside.
Yeah, but I was still outside a lot as a kid, though.
Yes, but I was outside wandering in woods, and my parents didn't know where I was for
yes, but we can't do that in
hours.
my neighborhood. We can't do that in our neighborhood.
my generation also went analog, though. We lived without the internet. We lived at a time where there was no DVD, no VHS.
Ugh, that had to have sucked.
If you went to a movie, that was it.
Yeah.
You were never going to see it again unless maybe it showed up on TV one day. That's why we bought comic book adaptions and novelizations and stuff like that. The idea that I could do an internet search for something I was interested in, it still baffles me. You have no idea how hard it was to be a fan of The Shadow and the Green Hornet in the 1990s or the 1980s. There was nothing. I couldn't get it. I couldn't. There were 5 movies that you could not lay your hands on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's those different perspectives that makes this interesting too.
Because we have 2 very different takes on any given thing because of how each of us grew up.
Right. I mean, you grew up with Frozen and
True.
Tangled and Spy Kids and
that
Shark
was
Boy and Lava Girl.
That was such a good movie. I remember watching that in middle school. That was awesome.
And I grew up with The Last Starfighter and Flight of the Navigator and completely childhood scarring things like The Neverending Story and
I don't think I've seen that.
The Goonies and The Goonies is just
well, not The Goonies, but The Neverending Story. I've heard the name before. I don't think I've seen it.
You've seen it, yes, you have.
I have?
Hmm?
Oh, okay.
See, and you know what? That kind of, as you and your sister, you're not an only child. You're not an only child. You have a younger sister named Lydia.
Only by like a year, 20 months.
Your mom and I tried to we had certain essential movies that we tried to make sure that you guys saw growing up.
Yeah.
And for some reason, your school also showed you movies at times too. So they took care of Back to the Future for me. They took care of Romeo and Juliet for me.
Okay, but the thing is, Romeo and Juliet, I watched a movie of it in my junior year. For Back to the Future, that was freshman year.
And I would also take you and Lydia to conventions from time to time and do stuff too. And
yeah, especially when we were younger stuff. And literally the amount of times that I have confused people by saying, no, I'm not the one dragging him to these. He's the one dragging me to these things. But yeah, that just seemed really interesting.
Well, and I fully expected both of you to grow out of it, and Lydia did, but you kind of found fandom a little bit more.
I over time, it honestly, it mostly just started off with just going because it was something to do, and with being into some superhero stuff. But as I started to get older and develop my own fandom, such as anime with My Hero or with other things,
or things like Hunger Games,
yeah, and that is when I started going really on my own terms because I had fandom, I had things I could talk about, I had things I could dress up as, and that was what really kept me in it. Because unlike Lydia, I really hooked on to fandoms, and that could be due to the hyperfixation of the ADHD. But I like to think that it's just that's what really drew me in.
Mm-hmm. And so, at that point, it's kind of we watch movies as a family for a long time, and so we would watch the stuff, and Mom would think of things that she wanted to make sure you guys saw. Mm-hmm. I had my list of things that the stuff that we watched as kids, because kids movies when Mom and I were kids. My wife Amy is the same age as me. Well, she's not exactly the same age as me. She's 28 days older than me.
Oh my gosh.
This is important.
Oh my gosh.
So they were different. Kids movies were. I'm going to flat out say they were smarter.
Yeah, I agree with you.
They didn't want to talk down to you.
Not going into direct stuff. The Last Unicorn is the first thing that pops into my head when you say that.
Yes.
That movie, I mean, I didn't understand a lot of it, to be honest, when we were watching it, but compared to the crap that kids watch these days, even and I can also kind of agree in that, even in my general sense, that the stuff I watched when I was a kid is a lot I grew up in the age of YouTube, and I grew up watching people like Stampy Cat and popular MMOs and all those Minecraft YouTubers, because that was the big thing when I was a kid. And these kids are watching this Dream SMP, and I'm just sitting here this is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So as we, and also, like, I stayed home with you and Lydia for a while there too. But I stayed home with you. I pushed you in your stroller up to the library once a week for story time, and then we'd borrow a couple of movies and a stack of graphic novels, and a book or two, and come home. And you would sit on the couch and gurgle and or hang out and watch all the pretty red colors, and Mom would come home. It's like, you watched Dawn of the Dead with her?
Maybe that would explain why my humor is so broken.
There was one night, there was one day, like, I lost track of you for a minute. I'm back here in the library, and I, like, went to fix a sandwich or something. I don't know. You had to be 2.
Oh, no.
And I walked back into the library, and you're watching Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. And it's the end. And Freddy is surrounded by fire, and he's melting. And you're sitting there just watching, nonplussed, completely fine. Yeah, okay. Yeah. And I'm like, so I came down and I got to your level. Like, so, yeah. See, and this is why we never play with matches.
Which is weird because I became kind of obsessed with fire during, like, elementary, middle school.
Fun fact, I've told Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger, this story, too. So he knows you did this.
What was his reaction to
He
that?
laughed. He was starting to get a little nervous as I was telling him that. And then he laughed. He'd had certain similar moments with his nephew.
Oh, no.
So as we're leaving that behind, you and I just started kind of watching movies here and there.
Yeah. And it officially kind of came to a term around when my younger sister would be going to dance, usually like once a week. And we were just kind of ended up stuck with each other.
And I would take that opportunity to show you inappropriate things. Like, inappropriate. See, I'm maybe stretching that definition. Here's the thing. My parents were not going to let me watch anything that was, say, R-rated.
Yeah.
They weren't going to and to be fair, they didn't have the resources like I do, or the encyclopedic knowledge of film like I have.
Yeah.
To discern what can fly and what can't. Although, there was times like, okay, they let me watch House because that had the greatest American hero in it.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free.
We'll get to that later.
Okay.
They would let me watch. My mother saw, okay, Edward Scissorhands is PG, and that looks pretty horrific. I'll let him watch that.
No.
So there's stuff like, but as a general rule, like, kids in my era, were going and watching. Dads were taking boys to see Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. One of the girls that was doing, like, clown ministry with me would show up in Freddy t-shirts, and I'm like, my parents won't let me do that. I tried once. All right, so there's a new movie called Ghoulies, Ghoulies.
Okay.
Little ghoulish puppet thingies.
Okay.
Could we maybe see that? To my shock, they said yes.
Oh.
And then we went to the theater, and I'm watching, and I'm like, this doesn't look right. They took me to see Goonies.
Oh my god.
Treasure Hunt with John Astin and the Coreys, and I have held it against Goonies ever since. That's like a seminal film for people at my age, and I hate it because it's not a monster movie. So it's like, I'm not going to do that to you. It's like, I want to expose you to the things that I like, and to the. Now, I'm not going to show you Hellraiser at 13 or 14.
Yeah.
We waited until 17. And even then, we fast-forwarded through some of the spicier parts.
Yeah.
But
But I also just generally don't like that kind of media, so we were both kind of cool with that.
But, you wanted to see Chucky.
That's true.
I can swing Chucky.
Didn't I watch Chucky while drawing a picture of the cat from the comic book shop?
That may be. I have a photo of you.
You have a photo of me doing that, I think.
So, it's stuff like that. It's like, okay, I can swing that. I can swing this movie. And some of it started with stuff that you were asking me about and stuff that I wanted to. And then at some point, well, what is the movie box of Doom?
So the movie box of Doom, I'm going to kind of go into its origins about here, because I was thinking about it since we were, even when we were talking about doing this podcast, I was thinking back to its origins, and the farthest back that I can remember is, like, you putting on, like, a movie, and then, like, the next week, I'm like, hey, how about we watch this, or something like that, and I suggested a movie.
Because we've been doing this so much.
Right. I was thinking of the wrong one.
Well, and the thing is, it's like, there's so many that I could show you. Mm-hmm. Maybe I don't want to, like, too many choices makes it too hard.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to pick 10. And I'm going to throw them in there. And and what happens? So I hand you.
You hand me the box. I stick my hand in the box, ruffle through the papers, pull out a paper. Boom, that's the movie we're watching this week.
Right. So it gives us variety. I don't know what it's going to be. I know what it could be, but.
And you even have, like, set trailers and stuff with each of those movies as well, somehow.
Right.
I struggle to find trailers on a weekly basis.
See, this is, you're not familiar with Quentin Tarantino, but he would host movie parties at his home. Oh. He's a famous director. He would host movie parties at his home. He'd do, like, a double feature, and they'd be trashy old grindhouse movies. But he would find trailers and stuff because it's all part of the experience.
Yeah.
And it also, like, gauges, okay, what's your interest in this, or this? So, but you're right. It was all mine for quite a while there. And so you started kind of getting, like, itchy and that's where we get the movie Wheel of Boom.
Well, it started with the movie Box of Boom, though. I stole one of your old boxes and painted it. Because I kind of wanted to do the same thing. But after a while, I got so sick and tired of trying to figure out how to work the printer, because I could not work that dang printer back there, that I was like, okay, using my old Apple phone at the time, I was like, okay, what if I just, like, pull up a randomizer? That was no use. I tried a couple different things until I found, like, a random wheel generator. And I went through a couple different sites and found one that allowed me to do images. And I was so excited because it would, like, block it out, and then you'd spin it, and then it would pop the movie on top. That way, I also had not quite any control over it. But it was also, as I said, as growing up in the age of technology, it was easier for me to just put it in that and just have you spin it each night.
Right, and see, that's really the interesting thing, because that's a difference in Gen Z with Gen X. And quite frankly, I'm a baby boomer in the body of a Gen Xer. I should have been born in 1930, not 1975. I have been an old man, and I'm for at least the last 20 years, and I'm not quite caught up to my age yet. Mm-hmm. So, which is funny. I work in IT. But
which has given me way to a lot of technological knowledge.
But I'd rather use a low-tech solution. And so the fact that I go with a low-tech version of this and you go with a high-tech version of this, it's a great illustration of the difference between our perspectives.
I never thought of it that way before. That's actually a really interesting take on it.
And I think, to me, that's what makes doing this, even this kind of podcast, interesting. It's not just another grumpy old man doing a podcast. It's the different perspectives. It's the different approaches to it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like as you mentioned before, with each of us growing up with such different styles of movies, I mean, even during our conversations during stuff, like, it's fascinating to see. It's fascinating to see how, like, I can pull out, like, all these different, like, internet references to, like, different stuff. And what always surprises me is half the time you have no idea what I'm talking about when I mention memes. And that always, like, it's the same way with my mom, too. And even Lydia sometimes. All of you guys are so uncultured sometimes. But, like, I love that. I love that we have two very different like perspectives. We are in two very different fan bases. Like with me, my main fan base at the moment is like My Hero and a little bit of like Hazbin Hotel and like anime in general, stuff like that. And you're over here in like all of your like really intelligent stuff with like Star Trek, with Doctor Who, with like DC and all that stuff. And we bring different things from those fandoms together, which is really interesting.
Well, and that's part of, I think that's part of the reason that you. One of the reasons why I like watching your stuff, I mean, it gives me an excuse to watch anime,
to be caught up on like
right,
modern
and to
stuff.
find out what's current. So when we go to the anime conventions, well, also having a teenage girl with me makes me look like less of a creeper, but.
No.
I also recognize more and more of the characters now.
I am the reason why he knows a lot of the My Hero characters. I am the reason why he recognizes Demon Slayer. I am the reason why he's gonna hopefully... I don't know, I've never seen an apothecary costume out in the wild yet. But I'm the reason you're able to recognize that stuff
There's
now.
going to be a Hanako at ZipCon coming up.
Where?
I don't know.
Like,
She posted.
oh.
Some person posted, though.
Oh, I'm going to have to go and find them. That's going to be... Because there was one last year, too. There was a group of them. But yeah, I'm going to have to keep an eye out for that.
On the other hand... this is also a great opportunity for me to kind of to immerse you in fandom. So in multi-fandom. Like, I'm going to be heading to Cleveland Concoction. That's another convention beginning of next month. And that's a multi-fandom convention.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where, you walk in there, you want to be conversant in Lord of the Rings. And in Star Trek, and in anime, and in gaming, and in Doctor Who, and in fantasy, and in literary stuff. You want to be able to talk Isaac Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke, as well as Dragonlance and stuff like that. So it's like, I want to expose you to more of that, because you're spending time in fandom, and it expands your horizons.
Yeah.
So this is a great way of me doing that, especially like with the comic book stuff. Because, I mean, you've been going to Comic-Cons with me for ages. And not just Comic-Cons, other stuff too. What other other events can you think of stuff? I can think of other stuff we've done.
Let me think.
We've done zombie walks and stuff that together.
Those have always been fun. We've got a local one that's like a fundraiser for like food and cans and stuff. I think we went to it last year, didn't we? I did like Oogie Boogie, which was a lot of fun.
You did Oogie Boogie. I did Gomez Adams.
And you proceeded to not walk the entire zombie walk because you were arguing with a Bible basher.
with a street preacher that was
yelling at us.
Probably, yeah. That was so weird.
That was weird.
We're actually doing what Jesus said to do. We're feeding the hungry.
And then I get to the end of that zombie walk and I'm like looking around for you and I'm like, wait, where's my dad? And I hear someone come up that says, oh yeah, there's like someone that's like still arguing with the preacher, and I'm just like, oh yep, that's him. All right, I'll just wait out here.
Because I also have very strong religious Christian beliefs. I'm trained as a pastor, and that's not drawing people in. That's having the opposite effect. But I mean, I've also taken you to stuff like Free Comic Book Day.
That's true. I do remember going to those a lot.
We've done
as
some
a kid.
cosplay with that as well, and that's another thing that we do. Conventions and other things like that. You probably won't hear too much about this, but we will occasionally do charity events as cosplayers as well. I don't talk about that a lot because it's like
you don't want to like bash it out.
I'm not tooting my own horn.
Yeah,
but
I always liked going to those events when I could. The issue was just always scheduling, and they're always way out of Illyria.
So
or Ohio.
We've done that kind of stuff. So it's fandom in general. And when we're watching these movies, we're talking about it.
Yeah.
It just seems like it would be fun to share that with everybody else. I mean, I've been listening to podcasts for probably a decade and a half. I drive a lot for my work. So I have podcasts in the car. You can only listen to so much political radio. You can only listen to so much music. And this is the kind of thing I like.
Yeah, and
conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I've only really recently kind of joined into this, like, podcast era, and not even really. I'll sometimes listen to it while I'm doing my walking in the morning. Like, I mean, the main one I just listen to, I don't listen to audiobooks just because I have a hard time with, like, that kind of stuff. But I've listened to a lot of, like, interviews. Like, one of my favorites is a show called Ladies' Night, where this lady brings in, like, voice actresses, and she, like, talks with them, does, like, an interview thing. I find that really cool. So I'm slowly starting to get more immersed into that world.
You find your niche, and you go with that. Film's been part of my hobby for ages. And, you know, I do film conventions as well, things like Cinema Wasteland, things like Eerie Frequency, things like Horror Hound,
My
or
hobbies
Days of the Dead.
don't stop. My hobbies don't stop. I'm always on something new.
And I think that's also part of why we do this, too. Because introducing somebody else to a movie you like, you get to experience it for the first time again, watching them.
That's something that always freaks people out when I'm watching stuff with them. I love watching people's, like, reactions to things. It freaks my best friend out, like, because when we'll watch something, like, even if we're not in the same room, I'm like, pull up your phone, please put on your camera. I want to watch your reactions to this.
But that's the thing. We're experiencing it through their eyes. And that's why we shared this with other people.
Yeah.
And I think that's also why we're sharing that with you. People of the future, listen to our podcast, whether it's weekly as it drops or years and years later, because we just happen to talk about that movie you like. Hopefully you'll find some other conversations you like.
Or just, like, tapes buried in the ground that you discovered one
Yep.
day.
You're not going to learn anything about the movie listening to us. You're just going to learn what we thought about it. And
You will learn some stuff, but not, like, that's not the point of this. Our point isn't to inform here. Our point is
our
to
point
talk
is rabbit
about
holes.
It.
Our point is to
Rabbit holes going off the edge of a cliff, like...
and talk about everything that's surrounding it, and to just hang out with each other, and more importantly, to hang out with you. So, that's what this is. This is the Argo City Podcast.
Bye!